Welcome, everybody. I'm really happy to be here today with Jarrod.
And a pleasure.
And today, in the series of podcasts that we are recording, what I would like to discuss with the man, because he is the founder of GUE, he is the president, he is the leading person in the organization, I would like to discuss a little bit about what GUE is. And probably you have heard all of these conversations before. We came from here and we're doing this. But I would like to hear a little bit more from the source. And maybe I would like to hear a little bit about, are we going back somewhere, or are we developing into a different direction? Are we changing, or we are actually adjusting or coming back to the roots? Because what you might have seen recently, and especially with all of the changes that we are doing, we are introducing new programs like Performance Diver. We have launched a very nice, super sophisticated, and I'm super excited about it, online learning platform called GUE Mastery Learning. And they are different voices looking at us from that perspective, going like, where are you going? Yes, and for me, I'm an instructor, and I really like teaching. So I came into GUE because I found a group of people that have been approaching teaching from the same perspective, and this is what I mainly focus on, educating. But is GUE really about educating? Is GUE really a training agency, or are we something different? Because if we teach, we often say we have three pillars. We have education, we have conservation, exploration. And what I have seen in recent years, working with GUE, we really very heavily focus on education. And now the effort is really big to launch all of the platforms, to get the new classes going, to retrain instructors. So what it is that we are actually doing? Are we going back or are we going away?
Well, I guess it depends on the perspective that you're looking from. But for me, we're recommitting to the original organizing principles of the organization. And I think that we can see it in the name Global Underwater Explorers. And that was the genesis around which the organization was created. That was all of my early history as an explorer before GUE was created, and then as GUE took shape. And there's good reasons why it's become seen as mostly an educational organization. It's because the state of training for that kind of diving, and we should talk a little bit about what exploration means, but when we talk about exploration, let me just earmark here, I mean anything that's challenging for the individual. So it doesn't mean you have to lay line in a cave at great distance. It means you're challenging yourself. And I really wanted to enable people to challenge themselves. Thus, we spent a couple decades building a very robust and detailed educational curriculum because there really wasn't that kind of focus, and it was really needed. In lockstep, we always continued to maintain exploration, as you well know, and it's the core vital aspect of the organization, but the educational component is just one of the many principles needed in order to be effective as an explorer, as are the standards in the team and safe diving practice and all the other principles.
So the education component is an element that is necessary to explore. And we did have recent discussions about safety first or not first.
Safety also, as
Safety
Brad likes
also,
when I say.
Yes. So, and in training, very often it will be the focus. You need to be safe. You need to respect the limits. You need to kind of gauge yourself. You have this and this amount of requirements that you need to fulfill. But this kind of is opposite to exploration, because with exploration you explore like new stuff, new things.
Yeah, in many ways. I mean, if you're going to challenge yourself, of course, there is a level of risk associated with that challenge, but you need to learn enough to challenge yourself at the right level. And I think that the training is an important part of that evolution for anyone. And the training, as you say, is necessary but insufficient. I see the education as one of many of the aspects that allow people, enable people to get the most out of their diving, to get the most out of themselves. And I think it's a critical aspect that we've always embraced. And to do that sustainably, you need a good education, but then you also need all the other tenets that we talk about. You need a good team, you need to have a safe organization, you need to have reasonable standards to be efficient and act in a sustainable way.
So now we talk a lot as well about mastery learning, and then, or we talk a lot about mastery. And now what you said fits very well within that definition, because mastery is when you have the knowledge, but then you can apply it to do cool stuff.
Absolutely. To an end goal. And that's one of
Yes.
the reasons that I hit it off immediately with Ulrich, because I know you did
Yeah.
as well. And I think one of the things that really draws him and his monumental work in this area of mastery learning, what we're learning is for a purpose, to accomplish a goal. And that's just like the education, it's like the standards, it's like the safety, it's like everything that we do is that goal-oriented activity. And some people get a little lost in one corner or another, but you can't really look at it in isolation. You have to look at it as a holistic system as it was built.
So the goal is not equipment. The goal is not
No,
trim. The
no.
goal is not to
Don't
be
care
safe.
about them.
Yes, you need to
I mean,
go-
obviously I care. I'm
Yes.
having some fun, but I get frustrated sometimes. Maybe that's even too strong a word. But I think that people just get lost in little teeny versions of the
Yes.
activity. You know, trim is very useful, but we don't need to go around writing tickets for people who are slightly out of trim. I spent most of my diving out of trim, actually, which is quite ironic and shocking to people when they first look at me. The goal is that I can swim flat in the water when I want to be efficient and hydrodynamic. Or if I'm in a small cave or wreck and I need to not disturb the visibility, I need to be completely able to do that in an unconscious way, which requires a lot of training, which is how people got lost on that as a goal. It does require a lot of training to make it automatic and unconscious.
Yeah, so we train people to get tools, but it's the tool.
Yes.
It's not the goal. It's not the
Exactly.
destination. It's just a
The
stepping
same,
stone.
the trim, the equipment, all of it. And none of it's religion for us. I mean, any of the equipment can evolve as it has over the years.
Yes, I mean, we had not problems. We had discussions like, oh, I have seen this instructor diving this unstandardized equipment. And we say like, and what's the problem with that? It's like he needed it to do that exploration that he wanted. Because sometimes we cannot just limit ourselves just because somebody wrote something, you have to use this.
I think, and people, it's hard because people don't tend to gravitate to nuance or subtleties. And the reality is that you have to put something down on paper, right? And there's no magic point. It's like narcosis. You don't suddenly lose your mind at 31 meters. You know, you can dive quite safely deeper. You can have problems shallower. It's really context and individual dependent. Freezing conditions with inexperienced or stressed diver, quite shallow, could be a very narcotic event for a person, and deeper and clear warm water might be very simple for other people. You have to have some level, to have some measure and some standard in order to base yourselves. But that means that you shouldn't stop thinking. And that's the big problem that I think we confront now 30 years in. We see that people have sometimes dogmatically pursued something and tried to take it in isolation without either the holistic view of it or the thinking part, which is really quite important.
Yeah, so we see black and white thinking. It's either right or it's wrong.
It's easier. People gravitate to that. I know that's the comfort zone, is to just take this and hold on to it tightly. And I don't want to rob people of what makes them comfortable. So, if you are anxious or uncomfortable and you like very firm boundary conditions, I'm not here to tell you not to have them. We created them in really large part to try to keep people safe, either because they were anxious and needed that safety, or because they were aggressive, like I was when I was younger, and needed, maybe still now, I guess depends on your perspective, and just create some boundary conditions in which you can learn and develop and evolve, and then to understand enough to make choices. And for me, it might sound callous for people who die after a lot of experience or in certain situations, but for me, the saddest was always new divers who were lulled into something well beyond their capacity, never had the chance to make a sensible choice, weren't aware of the decisions they were making. So one of the big goals for me from a formational perspective was to create an example. You don't have to dive deep, but you can if you want, once you understand. That's just something we haven't embraced because we don't see the point, right? And generally speaking, it's safer, more efficient, more enjoyable not to pursue that. But it isn't really like we're trying to go around and judge everyone.
Then I heard you talking quite many years ago in one of the events, is that there's always risk involved in what you do. And some people will feel more comfortable with certain level of risk and some others not. But what you said, it kind of was a little bit eye-opening because there's always some risk, but it's how you personally evaluate that risk.
Absolutely. There's an objective, let's say quasi-objective level of risk, and there's a subjective level of risk. And we experience it differently. And I've definitely noticed people I've been with have been, biting their nails nervous, and I didn't understand why. we just have a different perspective. A lot of that, of course, is experience based. If I've done something 1,000 times and it's your first, it's natural. You're more nervous. But some people are just more timid or more uncomfortable with these kind of stressful events. So it definitely has to be adjusted based on the context and the person.
I would like to pivot a little bit to different thing, maybe, is that very often in the beginning, if you learn a new activity or if you learn something new, you really feel comfortable within the boundaries of black or white. Because somebody tells you this is right, this is wrong. I say, oh, okay, I can make a choice, this is right.
Sure.
But then as you go on, you say like, oh, that's right, but look, that's almost right. Or this is like, a little bit less right, but it's still okay. So at certain point, you have rules, but then, and in the beginning, I think people need to, in a way, follow that. They need to learn where their boundaries are and what their perception of risk is. And this is, for me, it's very sometimes hard to explain, is where you can go behind that, where you can push above it, so we can move forward. It's like at what certain point, it's a little bit, maybe bad example, I drive sometimes too quickly. Yes?
I always drive too quickly, so I'm with you.
And at certain point, I can say like, oh, I'm not obeying rules, because I should drive here, 40 miles per hour and drive 60. But I evaluated the risk in a way based on my experience and the conditions, the car, the environment. It's a straight road, nothing around, and I do it, even if it's rule breaking. Yes? And I would not condemn myself, oh, you are a criminal. You are a little bit taking more risk. Yes?
Yeah, it's only a misdemeanor.
A little bit. But that's the point. How we can make that bridge between, you are in the beginning and you kind of, okay, I will follow the rules because I need to learn. But at a certain point, I think everybody, if you continue, will evolve into the, I think I can soften the rules to do something more.
It's a good question, and it's really difficult it's impossible to answer, obviously, because it's different for everyone in every circumstance. And that's why we have intentionally created quite strict guidelines, rules, and experience base on the training level. So we require a certain amount of experience, as you well know, to get into classes and to train in a certain kind of progression. And we have very clear and strict certification limits, as everybody here would know as well. And that's critical in the training level because you don't know what you don't know. And then you need to train within reasonable boundary conditions that we've created and your instructor works with. And then after you're certified, I would say you should still dive within those limits for quite some time because you still don't really have real life experience. You have a curated kind of experience. And then at some point, you really need to start thinking about, am I happy here? Do I have other goals and aspirations? Do I feel comfortable? If you're going a couple meters deeper than your certification depth, are you in danger? Almost certainly not. So, but I can't tell you could go 10 meters deeper or 20 meters deeper. I don't know the circumstance. And if you're missing certain critical levels or skills in your training progression, so you're using the wrong gas, or you're diving in caves and you want to go inside passages, but you've never had training for that, those are pretty clear kind of boundary conditions. But I think everything else is a bit gray, and people are a little uncomfortable with that, or at least many people are. And I wouldn't push them, per se, but I would say you're only going to evolve when you start to challenge your comfort zone. But you should do it steadily and progressively and carefully if you are interested in that. And if you're not, then just enjoy what you're doing.
And of course, not everybody needs to go that far to push themselves really out. Because, as you say, some people will stop at a certain point. Not stop even. They will be satisfied with what they have and they will enjoy it for a longer time than others. You will have people that are enjoying diving on a cave one level for quite a long time. And they will be, okay, I'm really comfortable here. But at a certain point, they will see that their awareness grows, their abilities to solve problems grows, and they say, like, I'm kind of curious what's behind their corner, and then they can progress. So this would be like a natural transition. So now, talking about experience is then, if you are a student, for instance, if you plan to do more advanced dives, you would seek naturally somebody who has experience more than you. So this is what we are trying to achieve as well with our instructors at the higher levels, that they really have let's call it a life experience. Because one thing is to understand, okay, this is what's going to happen. Somebody told me, if I do this, this will happen. But at a certain point, I have seen things underwater that I say like, wow, I have never thought it's even humanly possible, but it happened.
Yeah.
And we cannot teach that. Yes? You need
No.
to have live experience. You need to have that.
Everybody does. The students do. The instructors do. The instructors are, in some sense, betraying a bit their students if they don't have real life experience. So if you just have, well, I won't say chalkboard, that's a little too old school, but whiteboard, let's maybe that experience. If all you have is this academic knowledge, then I think you're really not able to convey properly the nuance and the importance for your student. And if you're a diver, not an instructor, then you really need that base, and then you need to build up an experience on top of the foundation of your training. And ideally, you do it with somebody that's a bit more experienced than you, but not necessarily someone who's trying to pull you. No. And I would discourage that, and I would encourage people who are more experienced to try to bring somebody along in a smooth way. And this is one of the defining characteristics, if you don't mind, that we pivot briefly to this, which is the community component. And that was such a critical part of my evolution as a diver. In the beginning, it was a tiny community. There were half a dozen of us, but that steadily grew. And we quickly saw not just the benefit to doing things similar, which is how we evolved standards and standard procedures and equipment and everything. That was, of course, very useful. But more than that, operating within a group of people who can help each other and build each other over time. And then as we started to quickly realize, of course, that when that was projected on a global basis, then everything kind of falls into place because now you have a support network of people that can help you evolve as a diver. And I think that's a critical component that people miss in the GUE organization as well, just as much as they might miss the exploration part.
So when we have, let's say we have inspiring instructor to move within the organization and to teach on and on and on. Very often what they are challenged with, and I think this would be a sign for them not being ready to understand the difference of these are the rules and this is the gray zone, and this is my experience that I can bring in. Because I think one of the most critical elements of this experience is that the amount of things that you don't know is getting less and less and less. Because you have so many occurrences or instances that you need to use your knowledge that you have in a more creative way, kind of allows you to kind of think out of the box and say like, it's not only that, it's way more than this. And in that way, the experience for high-level instructor who is exposing students to the same, they really need to be knowledgeable and putting students into that particular type of risk in a way. And the students need to have that awareness that, I'm going into something that potentially, if I don't know what I'm doing, can be dangerous, because we are talking about dives to 100 meters. We are talking to, long penetration dives on a DPV in a cave. It can really go very badly, very quickly, if people are not aware what they are doing. And the instructor didn't have enough experience that with their authority built on that experience can convey it.
This is really critical.
Because they are not authentic in a way.
Yeah, I agree. It's really critical because, our cognitive processes are contrast-based, right? So we are comparative machines. And we are always assessing things in relation to something else. And if you have no experience base and everything that you know is academic, then you really have a very shallow knowledge and reference point. And a lot of what I find relaxes me is the fact that I have a lot of experience in different scenarios. So I'm not necessarily anxious in a scenario that might make someone anxious because I've been in that scenario before.
Or something
that naturally
similar.
Calms us, or something similar. Yeah, obviously that's more what I mean. I think you're right that these things become close enough that they have an important calming influence and allow you to process the whole thing in a much more efficient way.
Yeah, because if I would be a student, and I have had that before, I always chose instructors that this person knows so much more than I do. I want to take it. Because
it's the ultimate way to learn.
Yes, I'm shortening my time to do the cool stuff because I don't need to experience it. I don't need to empirically experience everything myself. I can use this personal experience to be quicker where I want. And I think this is one thing that we have a benefit of because we really emphasize the experience component, that the students and the instructors, because they have their own development paths, they can go progress super quickly. But then it's as well the problem of super quickly experience, even if you have.
Yeah, and they miss it a lot because, and this is one problem our own community has sometimes, is that people they substitute looking pretty for being a capable diver.
Yes.
And they're related, but they're not the same, as you know.
Yeah.
You can have a very rough diver, actually, who's
Yes.
maybe more capable from an
Yes.
experience and comfort perspective. And looking pretty in the water can be helpful
Yes, but
because you have good position
Yeah.
and hydrodynamic movement, and you're not creating a lot of extra problems for yourself
Yes.
by moving all over, but you don't have that experience base. And stopping there, I think, is a real tragic mistake that people make. And I think the benefit to the community and to the exploration mindset, the founding principles under which the organization was crafted and developed, the big benefit there is everything was built kind of top down with that in mind. So starting at your open water class and moving all the way through, everything is really built to allow you to progress wherever you want to go. And here I'd like to just briefly touch on that exploration idea. For me, people get lost on that. And when we talk about being explorers or coming from exploration, it really shouldn't turn off recreational people at all, because what I mean by that, and I love exploration in its raw form, like
Yes, it's like
nobody's
ghost-
ever been
exactly.
middle of nowhere in every possible conceivable way. But what I find most important about exploration, because I believe I do it in other areas where I'm much less capable and much less invested historically, is that I'm challenging myself and I'm growing as a human being. I'm evolving. I'm exploring new territories, new frontiers, be they intellectual, practical, physical, underwater, on land, wherever. I want to go to my dying day pushing myself and my boundaries to become better as a human, and that requires stress to evolve as a person.
Yes.
So we are designed to allow you, wherever you are, whoever you are, to grow to whatever capacity you want.
Yes.
And maybe 40 meters is your deepest target the rest of your life. That's amazing.
Yes.
Maybe it's 20 meters and you're nervous
Equally
about
amazing.
the water, and this
Yes.
is that just
Equally
getting in the
amazing.
water is
Yes.
already a nervous event for you.
Yeah.
And if we can help you do that better, then we've fulfilled our mission. And if you do realize that 20 meters wasn't that scary and you end up at 30 and 40, and I know hundreds of people like
Yes.
that. We know some people that we
Yes.
won't tell on, from phobic to water to
Yes.
loving to go diving, from, hating caves and feeling like they never wanted anything to do with it to passionate cave explorers. You don't really know when you get into diving. And if we start with a system and a community that's oriented around allowing you to reach whatever levels you can reach, you'd be surprised, I think. Not you specifically, because I know you're already there, but people in general would be
So
surprised.
it's a little bit like you're moving along, a corridor, and there is always a door in the end. And
Yeah,
you can always
another
open,
one.
it's like, ooh, it's another door. And then you keep on going, ooh, another door. Yes. And maybe there are windows that you can open, and then you can kind of,
Which has always been
evolve.
my life
Yes.
obsession. I have the worst, I just can't turn around. Even when I'm hiking, I always want to see what's over the next
yes,
peak.
the problem, you go running, and then it's like, I need to come
That can
back
be
because I have a
tiring,
next meeting,
agree.
yes?
Yeah, for sure.
So the last thing for this one is, but I think we kind of answered it already, is that we do have the new kind of tagline that we like to use, that we are an organization of explorers who teach, which combines both of these worlds, because it's exploration and it's teaching. And I think what you said now kind of wraps everything up in a way that it's more the mindset of exploration that we really promote very often. Like 80% would be the real explorer, the hardcore one that, I went somewhere where nobody was before, or I was. So I'm kind of pushing the boundaries further, yes? For myself and for the team, for the environment, for the community, for the sport, and so on. But then we are still having this, so the people who are coming to us to learn will have that benefit because we are actually doing that. So we are kind of trying to instill that mindset of curiosity.
Yeah.
People have this what's there?
The explorer and exploration part, it's the animating principle of the organization. And I think it's progressive. So if I'm an open water diver, exploration is, of course, learning to dive and learning to dive capably and starting to challenge myself with more dynamic environments and currents and things like this. And as I get into level 1, now I'm getting more stable in a slightly deeper environment. 2 and 3 onward, now you're starting to get into, what we might call proper objective exploration, in the sense of going where someone else has never been before or few people have been. But honestly, does that matter? I don't see a huge distinction, speaking as somebody who loves exploration. I think it's just as impressive that somebody pushes their own boundaries and goes diving who was scared of the water. I think it's more impressive than I, who have been diving since before I could walk, can go explore underwater. So, in that sense, it's a relativistic kind of exploration experience, and I don't mean that in a cheesy,
Cheesy way, no.
advertising way. I mean, I'm not trying to use exploration like people used to overuse turbo and all these other kind of terms. I really believe that with my heart, and I think that we want to be the kind of organization that enables people to be the best they can and to realize their dreams underwater in whatever fashion they might come.
So the tagline is not because, people said, you're intimidating people by saying that explorers who teach. For me, it's not intimidating, it's inspiring. It should be motivating that I can learn in a group of people that have a similar mindset.
Hopefully. That's how it's intended.
Yes.
So come and explore.
Exactly.